Hey, what's going on, everybody? Biz here once again, and it's time for a new build diary series on a new build once again. So, this is full disclaimer, Twitch chat named this character. I am absolved of all responsibility. Physics traps are hot. Why the name? Well, because we're playing Fire Trap. So this is a spell I've never spelled. This is like a build I've never ever played before. Never touched Fire Trap in my life. So basically we throw down one trap, the trap explodes, and things burn to death. Hence the name. So this character is level 88. This character is technically 2 days old. So I did one stream where like the last half of the stream, I just leveled her up and got her to maps. And then yesterday was the first day where I just actually mapped on the character. So we ended the day at level 88. It was a very like casual day. It was a short stream. It was only around 7 hours. But I like rushed this character to kind of like high reds, honestly. So she leveled a lot faster due to that. But overall, character's really cool. I started off with a map showcase, and the character is actually in, like I said, I rushed her. She is in T14s. I do have to be a little bit careful. My determination is stuck at level 15 because I currently don't have enough strength. I'm short on attributes. But I'll show you here. I just really wanted to be able to start farming the influence currency to get stuff on my gear. Getting stuff like trap throwing speed and stuff like that just seems incredibly comfortable. So basically this build, if I recall correctly, I got hit by the writhing tentacle mass or whatever it's called. If I recall correctly, most of the traps this league, the natural traps, got pretty significantly buffed due to trap nerfs happening in order to get rid of things like sanguinate trap a little bit to try to hit like the sabs on the wrists. They failed, right? And other builds got caught in the crossfire. But Fire Trap, I would say, feels really good to play this league. I've never played it before ever, so this is my first experience with it ever. And I have to say, this may turn some people off of the build like immediately when I say this. But to me, the build feels very much like DD Ignite. And some people are gonna hear that and go, okay, I'm clicking off the video. I like DD Ignite. However, if you don't like the 1-2 nature of DD Ignite, but you kind of like big chunky ignites with big AoEs, this may be for you. I was very, very worried about this feeling terrible to play. Because one, like trap builds, I don't really last with very long. I always try to do trap builds and then I don't play them very long and then I drop them. Not really been the case with this build. I've been having a lot of fun with it. One weird thing is that it doesn't really play a lot like a trap build, because you don't throw down a lot of traps and then they all explode. You literally throw down one and then it detonates. And it also plays pretty similarly to Ignite DD in the sense that while you are only using one button to deliver the damage, there is like just that slight delay before the trap actually detonates, where you would be casting, you know, Desecrate before your DD. So it does feel pretty similar. So that was the boss, pretty comfy. I'm just gonna go ahead and pour it out, I guess. So do remember, I'm level 88 and my gyms are like level 18 and 19 for the most part. I haven't grabbed a lot of the damage on the tree yet. So like this build should have no shortage of damage, especially based off like the characters on PoE Ninja that I've seen. They seem to have very, very respectable numbers. Like I still haven't grabbed Breath of Flames or anything like that. So there's a lot of damage to get on this build. As you guys can tell, like normally when I do always do that. Normally when I do like map showcases for the first build, it's usually like high white maps to mid yellow maps, right? This character's first map showcase is a T14, so that should go to show you kind of like where the build's at power wise. It actually feels really good. Feels really smooth to play. Like I was saying in the map though, I was really scared that this would feel super clunky to play. Not at all. It feels super smooth. I've been having an absolute blast with it. The only part is it feels a little bit disorienting to play Bleed Glad, where I'm using Warcry, so he's always screaming. I'm playing EQ, so there's giant bassy like booms all the time. and I'm playing Glad, so things are constantly popping like literal balloons when they die due to the bleed pops. To go to this, where I throw down a trap, and then that's the only sound you get. You get like a little, and then everything dies, and they don't make any sound when they die. It's just like, it's like I accidentally muted my game. That's how it feels coming from that build. But yeah, first I'll go over the passive tree. Now, I do want to say, I don't know like how long people have been playing this. I don't know if this build only popped up this league. It's not something I've really paid attention to be honest. There were a lot of people on PoE Ninja on the parent HCSSF Archnemesis ladder playing this build, and I just kind of like straight yoinked it. I just straight yoinked, like, because like everyone's like running almost an identical setup. So whoever came up with the build originally, thanks. I have no idea who it is. I'm just copying like what everyone else is doing on the ladder. And that is to say, basically, while leveling, by the way, I did go up through these spell damage nodes before I went Ignite to get that damage. If you don't want to deal with the respec, you can just spec this way though. So first I rushed like EO, and after EO, I went straight to the right. Now there are some good clusters over here. There's actually a lot of damage over here, a lot of life over here, mana reservation. So this is like a lot, there's a lot of really good nodes concentrated with very little travel nodes here. However, I didn't really care about that while leveling. I was very concerned, like I said, very concerned about the build feeling bad. So I actually rushed the trap nodes that give you throwing speed here. And then I got my mana reservation through this, right? So I went here and I got the summon skitterbots reservation, and then rushed straight down for charisma to be able to use determination and stuff while leveling. But the build overall, you go through, you technically don't need to go Firewalker. Like if you wanted to save some points here, instead of spending 4 passive points here, you could unspec these and just put 1 point here. I may end up doing that. Like I said, I'm just copying the trees on PoE Ninja right now. So when I get to like that end game optimization, I'll consider it, you know, based on like what else I can get for those passive points, right? Currently I am using might, and I still don't have enough strength. Strength is a huge pain point for this build. I can promise you that. You path through literally no strength anywhere on the tree, and you're using determination. So you're going to have to find like a solid 150, 160, 170, whatever it is, strength. So that's going to be pretty sad. I'm going to need strength rolled on a lot of my gear. Anyway, other than that, explosive impact is really, really nice on this build. So you path through, you get fire damage and AoE, and fire damage and AoE. Now, area of effect and area damage, obviously, they don't do anything for Ignite builds, but pathing through the right side gives you cast speed. And whereas normally you'd want the cast speed over a little bit of AoE. However, we don't cast, right? We just throw traps, so we don't care about that. So we get 20% increased AoE for free, which I will go into this more later, the actual sentences. But when you pair that with Heart of Destruction, this is 80% increased AoE while you're mapping, and it feels so good. Because do remember, generic increases to area of effect also increase the effect of your proliferation. So our Ignite proliferation is getting 80% increased area of effect too. So we throw down a trap, and this is something that I was memeing on a lot. I can't actually throw it down here. I guess I'll throw it down here, because you can't see it for whatever reason, the ground there. So I throw I throw this trap down, and then look at the explosion radius. And keep in mind that it's this big, right? It's this big. This is like well over double the size of the earthquakes on my Bleed Glad. Kind of pathetic. Worth noting too that my fire trap's only level 19. And once I get it to level 21, it'll gain an additional base radius. So it will get bigger than this. And then you also have to factor in that while the base explosion is, you know, this freaking big, it's huge. While it is this big, right? You're proliferating on top of that. So like anything even remotely towards the outside of that's going to get hit, and then it's going to have a prolif circle. Like if a mob's like over here. Let's see if I nailed that. Oh, over here. If a mob's over here and then it gets hit by that and it ignites, it'll ignite everything all the way to over here, right? So like you cover like half a screen minimum while mapping. It actually feels so smooth. You throw one trap down and it's just poof, everything's dead. It's very smooth. But I've been having a lot of fun with the AoE, if you can't tell. So it feels really nice to have all that AoE, and like I said, it will only get bigger, which I think is ridiculous. Then we path in through Purity of Flesh, grab, Purity of Flesh with some life masteries, the typical stuff, 10% increase max life, plus 50 to max life, and then also Vitality Reservation, because you do run that in this build. Go tit. And then we go down through here, we get Sovereignty, we grab the Reservation Mastery, auras, mana reservation, so we can fit in all of our auras. And then also, this is very staple, by this point with the masteries. Auras have 15% increased effect on you. That's a ton more armor. That's a ton more evasion from grace. That's more life per second for vitality, blah, 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 blah. It gives you everything. And then we move up and we grab Holy Fire. Now, Holy Fire feels really nice. You don't want to path through the bottom side. We're an Elementalist, so we take Shaper of Flames since we're an Ignite build. And we have, we always ignite with everything. So we don't care about chance to ignite anywhere. So we path through the top side, we get +6 dot multi, fire dot multi that is. Then grab Holy Fire. The plus 24% to fire res is really nice, considering you're going to be grabbing the Fire Mastery, which does give you a fat chunk of damage, but reduces your fire res by 30%. This basically evens it out. You only need 6% more fire res than you would otherwise need anyway, so it's actually really easy to build around that. There are 2 fire masteries that pretty much everyone on the ladder has taken for this build that I have not yet taken. Fire exposure you inflict applies an extra 5% to fire res, minus 5% that is, and 20% chance to cover enemies in ash when they hit you. Cover in ash is really good, so I will be taking that. I'm not sure yet if I want to take the fire exposure mastery, but we will see based on where I'm at with passive points. Now, moving on to the right side of the tree, melding. Anytime you're going to the right side of the tree, you gotta grab melding, especially if you're going to be doing a Ghost Dance build. Spoilers, it's a Ghost Dance build. Just that 3% maximum life is max ES. Super, super good stat. Really happy they put this on the tree still. We already went over the life masteries. Pathing down over here and through Trickery, Blood Siphon, Coordination, down into the evasion nodes. So we go for Revenge of the Hunted, simply because we need our evasion mastery for the Grace mana reservation. And we are right on top of a trap cluster, which I'll talk about a little bit here. So you get 12% trap damage, 5% trap throwing speed, and then Master Sapper. And what Master Sapper does is, while it does give you a lot of damage, the maximum traps placed at a time doesn't really affect us because of the nature of the build. And 15% chance to gain a frenzy charge when your trap is triggered by an enemy. Now, this looks really good on paper, and it is crazy good for most trap builds. However, it will be relatively inconsistent for this build. I have 1 frenzy charge right now just because I'm using a frenzy charge amulet. Not super intentionally, it's just kind of how it worked out. It's just what I had on hand, right? So normally with a trap build, you're throwing down 5 traps per click, roughly, right? And, you're not just throwing down them once. Like, you're like, throw down trap, throw down trap, throw down trap, throw down trap, throw down trap while you're clicking, throw down trap, right? Like, that's how it works. And then it's just like, bump, like all the time. So you always have max frenzy charges, no questions asked. With this, you only have one. And it's a dot build, right? So you only need to throw down 1 per pack, like, ever. So, like, that 15% chance isn't nearly as high as it seems like it is on paper, because this doesn't function like almost any other trap build. So it is really awesome. We still take it, obviously, but just know that it's not like as free as it normally is for most trap builds. I went ahead and pathed over here also and got this jewel socket, just because I had a really, really nice Crimson Jewel, 7% max life, 6% fire dot multi. Can't complain there. Other than that, pathing over through the right side through Blood Drinker to get our last life mastery, and then up through to Ghost Dance. Ghost Dance speaks for itself. Any build that's going on the right side of the tree, this is just the meta right now. Grab Ghost Dance. Everybody gets to be a trickster nowadays. Elemental Focus. This is elemental duration, ailment duration, and elemental damage, and 20% increased effective non-damaging ailments. We benefit from every single one of these stats quite a lot. The longer our night is, it benefits us more, so we have more, quality of life while bossing, I guess you could say, because we do have to worry about Frost Bomb, Bear Trap, and Flame Surge in the meantime. So if we get some extra duration on our Ignite, that helps, especially considering we are running Swift Affliction, which decreases the duration. Other than that, 20% increased effective non-damaging ailments. Since we are running Skitterbots, that gives us, stronger shock, stronger chill, which is more damage and more defense. And then 20% increased elemental damage is just increased damage, right? And moving on over here, I already went over this, but what this cluster actually gives is trap throwing speed, trap trigger AoE, and a bunch of trap trigger AoE and trap throwing speed. So trap throwing speed is really nice. I want to get it on the gloves. I haven't hit it yet, but that is my goal, is to hit it on the gloves, because it'll feel a lot nicer, I think, once I get that. Leth Shade, I see a lot of people running this. I think this is honestly a really, really strong node, especially for builds that tend to stay on the right side of the tree, tend to be pretty weak to dots in general, and Ghost Dance builds. Because Ghost Dance builds are really good against hits. This is almost like Glad in a way, where you're really good against hits because you have tons of evasion, you know, you have spell suppression, and anytime something actually ends up hitting you, when it does hit you, you basically just heal to full. So your one really big weakness typically tends to be like life regen and stuff like that. And you have no way to regen your ES if you're not getting hit, which means things like, you know, bleed and stuff like that will just like, or ignite even, will just totally eat your entire energy shield pool, and it feels terrible. Leth Shade solves that issue quite handily, pretty comfy to run. Then going over to Growth and Decay, I haven't decided yet if I want to grab a mastery for this. I don't think I need the fire dot multi while mapping, and it would basically just be for the duration of ailments to make it comfier on bosses. Other than that, moving on over, we grab fire cold damage, fire damage into Snowforged. This is just a bunch of damage, as well as the elemental masteries, the 40% increased effect of non-damaging ailments. Again, skitterbots, better shock, better chill, more defense, more damage. And this is going to be our only spell suppression cluster that we pick up. Instinct, really good, very convenient placement for the build. So you get 4% from both of the small nodes, which is 8. You get 10% from the big node, which is 10. That's 18% total. And then the mastery gives you 10% more. So we get 28% spell suppression from the tree. And currently I'm sitting at 83% spell suppression. Do keep in mind that it is only while on full life due to Revenge of the Hunted. So if I lose any of my life, not energy shield, just my life, if I lose any of that, that technically drops down to 73%. Though while mapping with the Quartz Flask up, I'm at 93. Basically what I'm doing right now is what you saw me doing on both the Spark Inquisitor and the Glad. I'm kind of just waiting to hit a spell suppression roll on a Cardinal Shield. I will start using that, and then I will be spell suppression capped very handily. And other than that, the very last thing is Life and Energy Shield, Life and Energy Shield, Life and Energy Shield, written in blood. Just Life and ES and some strength, some very, very much needed strength. And that's pretty much the passive tree. If you guys have any questions on that, let me know. So I'll move on to the gear. This is where things get a little bit interesting. So this character obviously has the benefit of not being the first character in the league. So this character gets a lot of hand-me-downs. I will say, though, my very, very first T14 map, I dropped a Vermilion Ring. Character seeds are real, dude. Holy crap. Yeah, because it took me almost a week to drop a Vermilion Ring on the Glad. Literally one map for the Elementalist. Coincidence? Who knows? Anyway, I hit it with one essence. Got my 30% increased fire damage with tier 1 life. The other stats are dead, but it did add an open suffix for a hybrid chaos craft. So I'm good with it for right now. I'm not super hurting on LE resist, so this is fine for me, really. I just wish that 12 int was 12 strength, and I'd probably use this for a very long time. Other than that, I am using, this is where I've deviated from people on the ladder. I am using a curse on hit ring. Obviously, I've done a lot of delve, as you guys could see from footage I've used in previous videos. The Glad delved a lot because honestly, I think EQ Glad is pretty good for delving just because Vol EQ is so nice to just run in a straight line. But I have a lot of these rings lying around. Why not use a flam on hit ring? It'll be, this is a tier 2 roll, right? So it's not the best. It will be slightly weaker than just self-casting. However, automating it feels nice when you already have a billion buttons you press while bossing on this build anyway. I see no problem not using it. And even though we do only throw one trap, again, the AoE is massive, so everything gets cursed with vulnerability. Most of the stats on this ring are dead. We don't care about really anything here except a fire resist roll, and it luckily had an open prefix, so I was able to craft on life. Yeah, not a lot going on here, but I do really like the flam on hit ring. Now moving on to the chest piece. I just hit this with a few deafening essences of greed. Managed to actually hit spell suppress. It rolled lightning res and then had an open prefix for Gravisi's craft. Not a whole lot to talk about here. It is standard. I would really like to replace this though with a pure armor evasion hybrid piece instead of a evasion ES piece. but this was the 6th link that I had access to, and I don't have access to any other armor evasion 6 link hybrids unless I were to, you know, cannibalize gear from one of my other characters. So this is a temporary chest piece. Onto the helmet. We have a helmet that I just had sitting in my stash because it was mildly okay, but it didn't roll spell suppression, which I finally found a use for it because I don't actually need this helmet to have spell suppression. I just need my shield to have spell suppression on this build. So it's some decent resist roll, and then also a flat life regen roll, which again, Ghost Dance builds typically don't have a whole lot of raw regen. So that's nice there. And then obviously the big sticking point is 108 max life. This is very nice. Open prefix, crafted on armor evasion, and then it also rolled flat evasion as well. So it's almost 1,000 total combined stats between the armor and the evasion, which is pretty nice for a helmet. Moving on to the shield. This shield is basically dead. I was using the shield originally because it had good life and it had a very high fire res roll, because I had not yet, when I first got to maps is when I rolled it, I had not yet grabbed Holy Fire for that 24% fire res, so I really needed a large fire resistance roll to not be in the negative. But got Holy Fire, and now I don't really need the shield anymore, so I've just been slamming shields over and over and over every chance I get in Harvest, looking for something with, you know, like tier 3 at least life, spell suppression, and then hopefully some other beneficial stats. As soon as I get that, I'm going to use it, even if it's not perfect, because being spell suppression capped is very nice, obviously. Moving on, we have these boots making a return. They were used on my Glad for a little bit, replaced them, and got a higher tier of life bench crafted on them, which actually is pretty nice considering that's almost 100 life on the boots. We got a spell suppression roll, and we have move speed. The only downside is that there's not a lot of resist on these boots, but as long as I'm not hurting on resist, these boots are actually really nice. 14% reduced mana cost of skills from lab enchant. That is a merciless lab enchant. That's not an uber lab enchant. And I did manage to hit ignites you inflict deal damage 5% faster, and they have 6% chaos res rolled on them. So right now I'm very happy with these boots. I'm going to keep what's on them for the foreseeable future. Onto the belt slot. Leather belt. This is a okay elder leather belt. Obviously it's an elder leather belt, so you would want percent life on this, but haven't hit it. I just hit it with a bunch of essences until I got something remotely okay. It's, you know, tier 1 life, a little bit of fire res, a decent amount of cold res, and a decent amount of chaos res. Though you're not gaining a whole lot because that fire and that chaos res roll are basically just one single bench craft. So it's basically just tier 1 life with some cold res, which is why I'm like, it's a okay belt at best, right? Lastly, we have the gloves. These are another pair of gloves making a return that you saw on the Glad in his early days of mapping. Basically, there's just a lot of resist on these gloves, and they also have good chaos res, which is important. Now, like I said, I don't need spell suppression, but these gloves will almost certainly be replaced simply because they don't offer a whole lot. But they will be relatively low on the priority list of replacements just because it, you know, it kind of checks all the basic boxes you would want. Now, in terms of the implicits on gloves for this build is pretty important. If you were to play something similar, you don't want to use Frost Bomb. You want to use Wave of Conviction, as you can see what I was doing. You only swap to Frost Bomb for like the, you know, the other effects like reduced life regen and stuff like that. Once you get the Eldritch implicit on your gloves, that will inflict fire exposure on hit. Now, I got unique enemy fire exposure on hit, and very similar to the unique enemy implicit I had on the Bleed Glad with the Frenzy Charge generation. This kind of like screws me a little bit when fighting Essence monsters or like Einhar mobs, because I won't get exposure on them at all. So I still want to keep re-rolling this until I get fire exposure on hits, just period. Because that would be the most optimal. And that has really good synergy, by the way, with not Heart of Destruction, Mastermind of Discord, because everything gets minus 25% exposure, and we get a bunch of mana regen all the time since everything is inflicting exposure, right? So I want to hit that. And then in the other implicit slot for the Exarch, I want to get Trap Throwing Speed. I think that will massively improve the quality of life of the build. One of the big things right now I really want to fit into the build is Onslaught. Currently, I have no way of doing that. Now, Onslaught on boots would be cool, but my current boots are my current boots, right? I'll go over the onslaught thing in a second, because I know that's going to confuse some people. So the scepter is okay. All I did with the scepter was throw on a essence, the flat fire dispels essence, tier 2, until I got something. I managed to hit fire dot multi, bench crafted on some % fire damage, and then I did have a harvest craft lying around for increased elemental damage with quality, and I needed to open up some Hordy craft slots to save more important crafts. So I threw that on the scepter. It's not anything like super crazy, but it is pretty nice for starting mapping, but it's not going to be the end game scepter by any means. In terms of the flasks I'm running, I'm currently using a Seething Divine, typical stuff, stealing, instant recovery, CB clearing, Quartz Flask, another CB thing. I do need to re-roll the mods on this, but what I would like to have on this is increased evasion during Flask effect. That's what I want rolled on it. This is phasing. Phasing's really mandatory on this build. One, because it's a dot. One, because it's a dot build, and two, because there's just that slight delay when you throw a trap down before it actually explodes. So it's like you'll run into a pack, you'll throw it down, and then you kind of just have to wait until it explodes before it kills them all. So you will definitely run into a lot of like clencher situations without a Quartz Flask. Quartz Flask is very, very good in this game. I may at some point, I did farm a lot of Stygians yesterday. I got like 3 or 4 Stygian belts. So I think ultimately what I'm going to try to do is get a Stygian belt rolled up and then throw a Hypnotic into it. Again, this isn't anything anybody on the ladder was doing, but I think it's a way you could optimize. You could get a Hypnotic Eye Jewel, and this build tends to struggle with proccing LE Overload. So what I was thinking is getting a Hypnotic Eye Jewel and crafting it with Harvest to get life for the prefix, obviously. And then a double suffix roll is what I want. So I'd be hitting this with crit rerolls. So I would hit it with crit rerolls until I got life. Increased crit chance if you haven't crit recently. This would give us way higher LE Overload uptime. Excuse me, I keep stumbling over my words. And then in the last slot, phasing. Now, phasing on kill has no tag, which means basically I just want to keep hitting it with crit reforges. Why crit instead of life, since I want life? It's just because life is way more common. There tend to be a lot of other nodes. I think it's going to be way easier for me to just reforge crit and then also hit life than it would be for me to reforge life and then get the crit and the phasing. But that's kind of what I want, and I think that would be a lot of quality of life and a lot of power for one jewel socket, and I could just put it in the belt. I wouldn't even need to waste a jewel socket on it. But that's what I'm currently thinking, so that's what I'm going to be using a lot of my harvester crafts on to get that. Because, like I said, LE Overload is honestly really, like, it's enough of a pain point on the build where I've actually debated just using a Ungles. Because it's been, like, there have been times where, like, a T14 map boss, I'm just like, instead of throwing down like Flame Surge and Bear Trap, I'm just like this the whole time. And it just doesn't proc. You know, I'm sitting there for like 30 seconds and it doesn't proc. So I'm going to have to get some crit somewhere. I may even like, there's an implicit you can get on the helmet, which gives spell crit chance. I may go for that as well. Just, I'm going to fit it in places where I can until the EO becomes consistent. But it is a problem I'm going to have to solve with the build. And then lastly, my amulet. Like I said, this is a hand-me-down amulet that I had on another character. Has 16% all res, has a lot of all attributes. I don't really care about the frenzy charges, but they're on there. Bench crafted on life. And then I anointed Arsonist. Now, Arsonist is what I have right now. It's 10% fire dot multi and 1.2% life per second. However, I think ultimately what I see a lot of people running is Divine Judgment, and I do think that is better. It's going to be a lot more damage than Arsonist, and 1.2% life regen is okay, but I don't think I want to use an Anoint just to get that. Though I may go for some like super crazy Anoint later on, because Divine Judgment is pretty cheap, but I think there may be a better one you can get somewhere. I may be wrong, but there may be something better you could get. I don't think you need Ash, Frost, and Storm on a build like this because you already have so much increased effective ailments. That being said, once I'm on bosses, I'll see where my shock and my chill is at. And, you know, we'll see where we're at with that. If I want more or not. So, moving on from that, let's get into the links. So, I haven't really decided. This is kind of where I'm deviating a decent bit from what a lot of people on the ladder tend to be doing, because I don't think some of this is necessary. Like I see a lot of people using like Arcanist brand and stuff like that. I don't really like Arcanist brand. I've used it a decent amount in the past, but I don't really think I need to use Arcanist brand in this build, so I'm not going to. I'm using shield charge, faster attacks with grace. I have an open socket here. In my shield, I have Frost Bomb linked with Combustion, and then Defiance Banner is just between them. So this means every time I put down Frost Bomb, I'm getting that Combustion minus 10% to fire resist, because with our Ascendancy, all damage ignites, so our Frost Bomb will ignite, and they will get minus 10% fire res. Moving on from there, we have Molten Shell, cast when damage taken, increased duration, and Bear Trap. Now this is important because the increased duration also affects Bear Trap, because I realized like the Bear Trap debuff was like super short. It lasted like 3 seconds, and I was like, that sounds super annoying to have to upkeep. So normally you guys can like see from most of my builds, I don't usually run increased duration on Molten Shell, just because most of the time I am pretty short on gym sockets. This time, however, it wasn't just for Molten Shell. It also benefited Bear Trap, so I'm using that. In the gloves, I'm using Summon Skitterbots with Unbound Ailments, which is, again, just a bunch more increased effective ailments. We can afford the mana to run it, especially since we're using a Eternal Mana Flask. Vitality and Determination. And again, like I said, it is locked at level 15, so currently my character is way squishier than it should be, considering, like, gym level 15 is, like, Act 9, to put it in perspective. So like a lot of this universally in PoE, right? A lot of the power behind gyms is locked at the higher levels, because that's when you get to maps, right? Like your gyms are going to be somewhere between level 15 and level 17 when you first enter maps. Level 16 and level 17, sorry. When you first enter maps. It could even potentially be 18 if you farm Blood Aqueducts, right? So when you put that in perspective, it's like, yeah, I have 1,000 additional armor right now with 40% more, but if this was like level 18 or 19 right now, I would have way more when you consider like gym scaling. So I need to get strength ASAP so I can be using a higher level determination, especially since right now I'm using a chest piece with no armor on it. In the weapon, we have Arcane Surge linked with Flame Dash and Flame Surge. So Arcane Surge mostly just for mana regen. Don't really care about the spell damage, as spell damage does not increase the damage of ignites. But so it's not entirely true. Well, what I said was true, but because Fire Trap throws down the burning ground, which is not ignite, by the way, scaling all the dot damage and everything also scales the damage of burning ground. So for Fire Trap specifically, I don't know if it works. No, it wouldn't work because it's based off your ignite. So scaling spell damage technically isn't a completely wasted stat on this build, because it will scale the damage of the burning ground, and you're already scaling the damage of the burning ground with all your elemental damage, dot multi, blah, 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 blah. So it is beneficial there, but the mana regen also helps considering how tight we are on mana. But it's twofold. That's something people on the ladder were using, so I think it is definitely like a good thing to use. Moving on, Flame Dash, it is, you know, movement ability, and Flame Surge. Flame Surge is just a staple on any ignite build you see nowadays. You basically get 25% damage added on to your ignite for free. So if you're dealing 1,000,000 ignite DPS, Flame Surge, you're dealing 1.25 mil, just because that's how it works. So pretty good. Other than that, we will move on to the Ascendancies. So in first lab, I went for Shaper of Flames. All hits can ignite. This makes leveling a little bit smoother. Originally, I was planning on going Mastermind at Discord just so I could rush Heart of Destruction as fast as possible. I still think if you want to do that, you can. I don't think it really makes a huge difference, to be honest, what order you take stuff in. But if you're in like a league start scenario, you're probably going to want the damage from this. So I'd recommend going Shaper of Flames first. It also lets you just not care about ignite chance whatsoever, which is very convenient. Which, again, like, it let me just rush right side of the tree and then not have to go over here and worry about, you know, chance to ignite on nodes, or go up here for chance to ignite on Breath of Flames. But yeah, so Shaper of Flames first, then going into Mastermind at Discord helps with single target, and then going into Heart of Destruction for the Giga AoE feels super nice. Also a bunch more damage on single target. And then lastly, taking Bash in the Elements. I think this is fine to wait until Uber Lab. I had someone in my chat like, wow, you're waiting until Uber Lab to get your defensive stat? It's like, well, or your defensive lab? And it's like, yeah, why not? I mean, while leveling, I don't need Bastion of Elements. And then like early mapping, I'm still going to be pretty low level. So in its nerf state, Bastion of Elements would have only given me like a, like 1200, 1300 shield, which, while still nice, is not, super crazy. And definitely not worth losing 30% more damage on, or clear speed quality of life. So that's the lab order. Went through the flask and everything else. I believe that's everything. I've actually been having a lot of fun with this character. Hopefully this character is going to be really good at bossing. So as you can see, I've spec'd for a lot of stuff, and I've spec'd for a lot of like boss related stuff. I really want to farm Drox, farm a lot of Conquerors, Drox, Cirrus, so I can try to get some Awakened Gems for people in the private league. Trade that down, because currently I think I'm the only one capable of bossing. So I'm like the only stream of like boss related items. That being said, I've dropped now 2 Omnis and Ashes of the Stars. So trying to like feed that into people so they can, have more fun with their builds or whatever. But yeah, so that's the current build project. I will be playing this today on stream. So if you want to see it in action, feel free to stop by. Gonna be doing a lot of Conquerors, hopefully farming a lot of Cirrus, maybe some Elder and some Shaper, and who knows, we'll see. But yeah, so far actually, like, this is funny. So I was leveling Arc in a weapon swap because I was scared that I was gonna hate this build, but honestly, it's been fun. I've been having a blast. I have no regrets whatsoever rolling this build. Been having a bunch of fun. So that will be, I think, the end of the first build diary update for the Fire Trapper. If you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know down below. I did kind of like scramble through this pretty quickly, but hopefully I covered everything. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. POB for the character will be down below. Link to the private league information will be down below. And if you enjoyed the video, leave me a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy the video, feel free to leave me a thumbs down. Tell me what you think I can do better. I do read all the comments. And if you're enjoying the content, please consider subscribing. It does help show support for the channel. And other than that, I will see you guys in the next one. Friendly reminder that all links for my Discord, if you want to chat with me, get build help, whatever, down below. Link to the Twitch, link to, all the relevant social media stuff. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.